Hello, everyone. Welcome to our USEA Consensus webinar, co-hosted with Derek Watchman and Steve Gray of Sagebrush Hill Group. This is the Indian Energy Minerals Forum. We also have Mike Moore, Program Director at USEA, here as co-moderator. So this is the second webinar in the second series on the first and third Wednesday of each month, which will occur until the end of July. Each webinar will have a unique focus in tribal energy minerals. And today we will be discussing key stakeholders, national energy policy transitions from the tribal perspective. So for those who are not familiar with USEA or myself, I'm Michelle Littlefield, program coordinator. And just a little note about our program, we are formally named the Building Consensus on Carbon Capture, Utilization, and Storage and Clean Coal Technologies. We call this Consensus for short. This is a cooperative agreement with the Department of Energy, Fossil Energy. The program seeks to educate the public, policymakers, industry, and stakeholders on CCUS and clean coal technologies by hosting webinars such as these, along with a series of monthly educational briefings, conference workshops, technical reports, and we release monthly news clips of CCUS and clean coal related updates. If you have not done so already and would like to join our mailing list, feel free to send an email to the address at the bottom of your screen and we'll add you as a subscriber. So just a little housekeeping. At the end of all of our speakers, we will have a question and answer session. Please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to submit a question, and we'll address as many as we can. This webinar will also be recorded and posted on our event page, along with the presentation slides. But we appreciate you joining us live today anyway. Mike, all you.
No, thank you very much for that and getting us off and running. I'd like to thank Derek and Steve for the work that they've done with their program to bring this to USEA. As program director, I get involved with events like this and others that kind of follow a fossil energy type theme. I am not going to take very much time with my part of this. The important part's coming. So I'm going to do this. Derek, I'm going to turn it over to you and Steve, and I'll be sitting in the background if you need me for anything. And thank you for being part of this.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Michelle. And good morning, Yat-A, everybody from Navajo. I am Derek Watchman, and I, along with Steve Gray, with my company, Sagebrush Hill Group, LLC, we are happy to present this webinar series in conjunction with the USEA and the Department of Energy's Fossil Energy. And so a lot of folks have asked, why are you doing this? And what's to be accomplished with that? And so, a couple of things that I want to point out. One is that we've been engaged to basically reach out to Indian country, our tribal energy leaders and tribal energy producers, and have conversations about the state of affairs, what's happening in Indian country relative to Indian energy. We were commissioned last year, and we had a great webinar in conjunction with the Reservation Economic Summit. We had two webinars because of COVID during the pandemic. And some of the things that were pointed out were, gosh, we really need to talk about what is the future for tribes, especially those tribes that, I guess you want to call it, that are heavily dependent on the resources and the benefits of fossil energy. And so we're talking about coal, natural gas, oil. And so, today we obviously have a big agenda, with the new Biden-Harris administration moving to clean energy, carbon reduction. And so I know that a lot of tribes are totally on board with that. And so, however, we have basically in terms, because I used to also work for my tribe on a couple of occasions. And so I see at Navajo that there's, we do derive royalties from the coal, oil and gas. And so some time is needed, to transition. And so today we have a great agenda, and what we want to talk about was just the energy policy that we're discussing nationally and actually globally. And so, but we want to have a conversation on the tribal perspective. We want to hear, so we're glad that Andrew Browning, who is the president for the Western States and Tribal Nations GASH Initiative, is here. And we're also pleased to see Vice President Myron Lizer, Yat-A Shenandoah. Glad to be here, sir. Navajo Nation is obviously the largest nation in the country. We want to hear from them. And then we did invite Chairman Mark Fox with the Mandan Hidatsa Arikara. But as you know, tribal leaders are busy, but we're very, very fortunate to have his energy liaison, Catherine Everett, talk to us. And so I want to say good morning and welcome. And so we're going to start here in a minute, but we're going to hear from these three parties about their perspective of their tribes, the new carbon reduction program, and where we're going. But I want to turn time over to my partner here, Steve Gray, and he and I have been commissioned. So I think you're on, Steve, but I'll turn it over to you for some comments.
Yeah, I am on. I don't know why the video's not coming on though. But I'll go ahead and just say a couple of words, you know, because my photo's up there on the screen, I can see. Again, we want to welcome everybody for joining us this morning. We have as Derek mentioned, we have a very full agenda. We're looking forward to hearing from everyone, our guest speakers, about what they are doing as the energy transition starts its process. As you all know, this is a new administration, and there is a transition that is occurring. And so there are a number of entities out there that have started that process. And what we are looking at right now is trying to get input from some of those entities as they move from a carbon-based economy into this new energy era. And so different groups, different entities have looked at it from an economic standpoint. And really that's one of the things that we're interested in, because the economic impact to Indian country is very big. As you know, there are a lot of federal dollars that are getting ready to be released out into Indian country. And we feel this is an excellent opportunity now for us to take advantage of that and put those monies to use as we transition, as different groups transition. So today, what we want to do is we want to hear from those entities that are starting to look at what are they doing, how are they moving in this new direction. At the same time, you know, they have a lot of ideas and thoughts about economic development. What is the regional impact? And that is really what we want to see also and hear. And we want the audience to hear that, because it's really important for Indian country to be able to hear that, but also to take that back to the people that are allocating those federal dollars to say, look, this is something that we might look at in our region that could help us. And so again, we're really pleased today for everyone that's joining us and participating in this. This is our second one. And so we've got a good lineup, but we feel there's a lot of information that will be helpful for all of the stakeholders that are involved in this process. So again, as chairman of the Four Corners Economic Development Group, I want to welcome everybody and thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And we appreciate your help. And I failed to remiss in introducing myself in the Navajo way. My clans are Taiskidney, Tohana, Bashashin, Katna, Zani, Deshiche, Otto, Taban, Chanela. And I'm from a town called Navajo, New Mexico. That's where I was raised. And as I said earlier, I'm president of my company, Sagebrush Hill Group, LLC. And so I just want, again, thank everybody, our speakers and everybody that on this call here. As Steve said, you know, our primary mission is to engage in conversation, you know, to talk about, you know, this new way of life, new way of living. But I was saying earlier, it's really nothing new for many of us, especially being of, Indian descent, indigenous, the customs and the values and what we believe in are consistent with, renewable, clean energy and whatnot. And so many of us tribes, because of, the energy companies and because of history, we were actually put into position of utilizing and mining and drilling oil and gas and coal. And that's been our mainstay, for less than a century. And so now we're moving into a new norm. And so I think it's worthy of discussion. And so I'd like to, without further ado, I did mention earlier that Andrew Browning, he's president of Western States and the Tribal Nations Gas Initiative. Steve and I have been working with him for a couple of years, and they're doing great work, in my opinion. And basically, Andrew will go into that. But Andrew, welcome. Thank you for joining us, and I'll turn the time over to you. I think if anybody has questions, please feel free to raise your hand or chat, and we'll try to get to it. We're going to go through the 3 presentations or conversations, and then if we have time at the end, we will answer. And then Steve and I, Michelle and Mike will try to do our best to answer anything that's put on the chat. So, Andrew, good morning, welcome, Yate, and I'll turn the time over to you. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to talking about our initiative, Western States and Tribal Nations Natural Gas Initiative. It's a pleasure to be a part of this. I think this initiative, it's been a challenge. We formally grouped together and established ourselves as a 501c4 about this time last year. So it has been a challenge, but I think we've been pretty successful in moving forward our efforts over the past year. I have a few slides I'd like to walk everyone through to talk about our organization, kind of our mission, our priorities, and what we're going to be working on in the weeks and months ahead. If you'll go to the next screen, please. So Western States and Tribal Nations is a unique bipartisan transnational initiative led by sovereign tribal nations, states, and counties focused on creating rural economic development, advancing tribal self-determination, reducing global emissions through the export of clean natural gas from Western North American basins to international markets. And so that's quite a mouthful. But what we really are is we are, I've been working at the nexus of energy policy and energy politics for about 25 years. And this is the first organization that I've been a part of that was formed and grouped by state and tribal governments and county governments. And I'll get to that in a little bit to advocate on their resources. The genesis of our organization was through a dialogue and a seminar in Utah with the Utah Governor's Office of Energy Development and the then Colorado Energy Office under Governor John Hickenlooper. And we had a seminar at the Uinta Basin Energy Conference where we focused on the challenges of getting stranded natural gas out to global markets on the North American West Coast. And I think that's a challenge all of us are pretty familiar with. And the decision was made that we needed to band together, that we were stronger working together to advocate that a lot of these problems were political and policy, and that we needed to formally establish ourselves to advocate on behalf of our industry on our basins. The Ute Indian tribe was a part of that conference, and they said we want to be a part of this discussion as well. In this effort as well. And so we created a report that came out about a year and a half ago that made the case for Rockies natural gas as being the natural feedstock for Asian LNG markets. So the advantages are pretty clear. You are exporting from the West Coast, you circumvent the Panama Canal. We have plenty of pipeline capacity and a huge resource base. It's really kind of political nature of the discussion that's preventing exports. And so our unique, public-private structure that we've created allows us to advocate at a global level and be a part of the discussion on Western North American gas and the kind of the energy, the geopolitics of energy, but also the geopolitics of climate change. Next slide, please. So our membership, as I mentioned, we were first formed by the Indian tribe, the Governor's Office of Energy Development, the state of Utah, the state of Wyoming joined us, the state of New Mexico joined us, the state of Baja California, Mexico joined us, and we'll get to a little bit about why that's significant. The Blackhawk Energy of the Jicarilla Apache Nation has joined us. We're hopeful that they will join our MOU as well. And then we are in discussions with the Southern Ute tribe on joining us. We're passing our MOU back and forth, and we're hopeful that they will sign the MOU and be a part of our organization soon. The Hickenlooper administration transitioned into the Polis administration, and they exited our MOU, and that kind of underscores the challenges. Really, the Polis administration said, "We wish you well, but we really want to focus on electrification." So the Western Colorado counties of Garfield, Mesa, Moffett, and Rio Blanco said, "Well, we want to join this MOU." But that kind of set us forth in the overall dialogue is how do we position our resource base as being a part of this conversation, as policymakers are, and specifically the Biden administration are looking at energy production through the prism of climate change. We've got a good story to tell, and how do we tell that? And I'll get to that in a little bit. Next slide, please. So I think I've talked about this a little bit in the first slide. I think the key here is how do we establish ourselves in natural gas and really kind of bringing the narrative of natural gas as a part of the global dialogue, national dialogue and global dialogue on reducing our carbon footprint, all the while supporting rural economies and tribal economies. And so that's a part of our discussion. We have a number of things that we've been working on to kind of develop a technical baseline on our role in reducing global greenhouse gas emissions and conveying this information to the policymakers in DC. Next slide, please. So the focus really has been, as I mentioned, on establishing markets for natural gas. While we originally had focused on Jordan Cove, I think that which is a export terminal on Oregon's west coast. I don't know how up to date folks are with the Jordan Cove dialogue, but that was a real struggle. Jordan Cove had secured their local permits and their national permits, but were not able to secure their state permits. And much of the dialogue was on eminent domain and climate change. But we have been working on Energía Costa Azul, which is a terminal in the state of Baja California, Mexico, that we think provides a pathway for gas export from the Rockies basins. The Rockies basins, and we've got a little map here on the side. We export, or we produce 11.5 BCF a day. And so we have been in dialogue with Energía Costa Azul and the parent company Sempra on the depth and breadth of our supply, on the bonding authority that our states bring to the conversation, on discussion on existing pipelines and rights of way, and the overall geopolitical reduction in geopolitical risk by circumventing the Panama Canal and exporting to Asian markets directly from the North American West Coast. The Asian markets are really the holy grail of LNG markets. You're looking at almost 70% of global LNG consumption will be in those Far East countries. China leading the way, but India, Japan being huge LNG consumers. We feel that setting the table on our comparative advantage is going to provide a market opportunity for us. Next slide, please. This is another map on Energía Costa Azul, and it shows you kind of where it is placed. You're looking at phase one. ECA phase one is Energía Costa Azul phase one has already gone into FID, final investment decision, in December of 2020. And that's going to take half a BCF a day. And most of that's going to come from both the San Juan Basin in northwestern New Mexico and Permian through existing pipeline capacities. What you're looking at is the extra almost 2.5 BCF a day when you look at local obligations of capacity, which would, if we're able to secure that market for our Rockies basins, that will increase gas demand by almost 20%. So we're in discussion with Sempra on kind of how we set that table. There will need to be new pipeline build out to take on the significant capacity that 2.5 BCF a day will need to get to the plant. So we're looking at various pipeline routes and how to set the table. And I'll get to that a little bit more, because the LNG market, especially with the incoming Biden administration, is rapidly evolving. Next slide. This is just another quick look at the Western Natural Gas Network, and I wanted, a picture is worth 1,000 words. This is a fairly robust pipeline network that supplies the California markets, which is, you're looking at what is California, the 5th largest economy of the world. And we're in discussion, and I'll get to this in a couple of slides later, on how do we utilize this existing network and build out extra capacity to handle hydrogen and blue hydrogen that could be produced in these basins and on tribal lands. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the global LNG market is evolving, and the states are I think moving to catch up with them. The Sempra Energy, the off-takers are Total and Mitsui, and they are moving towards carbon standards that are really even far above what the states and government is proposing nationally. They are rapidly moving to lower the carbon content of their value chain. And we think, and this is a part of our narrative, that the states, especially with what Colorado has done and New Mexico is about to implement, are really kind of provide an advantage in terms of securing those markets, because methane mitigation and capture will be the price of admission for any natural gas supplier that wants to export globally. We're also working with the state of New Mexico, the Energy Transition Act Committee, to establish an ESG green fuel certification program that will identify and establish standards for environmental social governance branded gas that incorporates the standards that will incorporate standards that we're developing. And we have a program that we are hoping to establish in northwestern New Mexico that will train displaced workers from coal plant closures, coal mine closures, and that we will help them gain the capacity to find work in the evolving natural gas industry. We'll train and certify graduates and help them find jobs with companies that are rapidly moving to reduce their methane emissions. And there are a number of companies out there that are occupying this space. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, we are moving to, part of our mission and priority is to establish a technical baseline for greenhouse gas emissions. We're about to release a study that was done, first produced in Canada. It was a study commissioned by the University of Calgary, or developed by the University of Calgary along with MIT, SMU, and Johns Hopkins University. And so we've taken the key authors of this study and asked them to look at LNG exported from the Western Rockies basins. So the initial study was looking at Canadian basins and exporting West Coast LNG from Canada to key markets in Asia, China, India, Japan, and looking at the displacement of their coal-fired power generation and what that meant for overall emissions reductions. And so we're about to put the final touches on this study, and we're showing that the total emissions reductions in China, and Japan, and South Korea, Taiwan can range up to 50% drop in emissions. And so we're about to release this study in a couple of weeks. We're putting kind of final touches on it. But it basically shows through modeling and analysis that natural gas is an important feedstock to help global greenhouse gas reduction goals, and that natural gas exports from the U.S. to Asia can be both economically and environmentally beneficial in terms of overall global emissions. And so this is I think, going to be an important piece of data for policymakers within the Department of the Interior, within energy, within the Biden administration, as they're looking at federal lands and production. And as I mentioned, policymakers, especially with this administration, are looking at climate or energy production through the prism of climate change. And we feel we've got a very good story to tell. Next slide, please. And we're also kind of setting the table on where natural gas can play in evolving hydrogen economy. There are a number of projects and programs underway, northwestern New Mexico and other basins that are pilot projects, some tribal owned. And so Western States is helping develop the narrative with policymakers and regulators on that natural gas as a bridge fuel, not only right now in terms of LNG exports, but in the future in terms of what could be a future hydrogen economy. Natural gas into hydrogen is called blue hydrogen. And so it essentially is natural gas where the carbon is stripped and sequestered. And the Western basins, the Rockies basins, the geology is perfect for carbon sequestration and production of blue hydrogen for export globally or to the California market. And California is rapidly moving to hydrogen. And we feel that supplying cities of Los Angeles, city of San Francisco with hydrogen produced in the Western states is a huge economic opportunity for our tribal members and our rural economies. We're also working with some of the labs are looking at the technical challenges on utilizing existing infrastructure with a gas hydrogen blend and what that looks like. Los Alamos, New Mexico lab, NREL, a Colorado lab, are on the forefront of looking at what it's going to take to transition our existing gas infrastructure to be able to handle hydrogen as well. Next slide. And so here's a couple of hydrogen bills that were supportive, and I just want to make everyone realize Senator Manchin has a hydrogen bill, a pilot program for demonstration projects in economically distressed energy producing areas, which basically is the description of just about every basin in the West. He has about $15 billion for these proposed hydrogen projects. There's about 6 of them, blue hydrogen projects. In the Biden infrastructure plan, there are about 15. There's language for 15 hydrogen demonstration projects. And then Senator Heinrich is also looking at electric power infrastructure that's needed to coordinate a regional transmission grid that's capable of taking the electrons produced by hydrogen in areas like northwestern New Mexico, Utah, southwestern Wyoming to the California market. So we're very supportive of that bill as well. Next slide. And these types of projects are already underway. And I don't know how many folks are aware of the Intermountain Power Project and hydrogen. The current project is in the process of retiring coal units to be converted to natural gas, and then looking at a blend of green hydrogen over time, and eventually blue and green hydrogen combination. And so this project is real. They are transmitting. They are in the process of transitioning and they have contracts to Southern California, into Utah and Nevada. And I think this is a significant investment by Mitsubishi, and you're looking at one of the largest hydrogen projects in the world. But we're competing. Australia is working. Is moving to be a hydrogen exporter, and Europeans also are looking at taking the next steps in transitioning to a hydrogen economy. And so the U.S. has a little bit to do to catch up, but I think the Western states can certainly lead the way. Next project or next slide, please. And finally, I've been talking for a while. I'll go ahead and say, this framework for regional cooperation already exists through the Western governors' policy resolutions on creating functional partnerships between agency, tribal governments, and local jurisdictions that can, essentially, it's what Western states has already kind of been formed to do, and we hope to be able to work under this kind of structure to continue to band together to advocate for LNG markets, but also to play a pivotal role in the blue hydrogen and hydrogen economy that is yet to come. Last slide. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. So real quickly, green hydrogen versus blue hydrogen. Can you speak a little bit to that before we move on? Just curious.
Sure. So green hydrogen is hydrogen. Blue hydrogen, as I mentioned, is hydrogen that is natural gas produced or coal produced and with sequestered carbon. Green hydrogen is hydrogen produced from biogas or totally renewable sources. Specifically, the goal is to get to develop electrolysis, producing hydrogen from water or totally renewable sources that are emission free. It is in green hydrogen. I think there are some amazing advances in the technology, but it has a long way to go. The cost is pretty significant right now. The last time I had looked, the cost was equivalent to about $45 a million BTU in natural gas terms. And so I do think, you don't go from black and white TV to flat screen overnight, right? You have to take steps. And I do think blue hydrogen, the concept of blue hydrogen, the plentiful natural gas resources we have, and the technology that is developing, and frankly, the geology that presents itself in the Western states is going to allow for that. So I think, obviously, as a country, as the Western states, as tribal nations, we need to set out broad goals, ambitious goals, but understand the steps that need to be taken to get there. And so I think there's a lot that we can do while looking at how do you utilize the existing gas, the natural gas network, and how do you get to that hydrogen economy that I think blue hydrogen produced made from natural gas is going to be an important player along the way.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, let's move on. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce my Vice President Myron Lizer of the Navajo Nation. And welcome, Mr. Vice President. We appreciate you joining us. And
yes, sir.
We know that you and President Nez have a big undertaking with your Sunrise High Proclamation, and the Navajo Nation is on many different transitions, if you will, and so we obviously am delighted for you to join us today. And so I'll turn the time over to you to hear, as to what you and our president is thinking on the Navajo Nation. So again, Mr. Vice President, I'll turn it over to you.
All righty, thank you, Derek. A big shout out to Fuzzy Mountain over there. Yate Bene, I am the Vice President. Comanche Nishla, Tohana Basistin, Comanche Deshache, Clash Deshanelli. It's good to be with you all this morning. And you're right, Derek, the Navajo Nation, by virtue of our Hayot Proclamation, have set forth our true moonshot statement that we wish to be the leaders in renewable energy development across not only North America, but perhaps even globally. So as you know, this pandemic has certainly set us back, but not wanting to use it as an excuse. Certainly we are all hands on deck mentality into pushing a lot of those projects and initiatives, working with our federal government partners, federal family, and also first I want to thank you, Derek, Sagebrush Hill Group LLC, also the Department of Energy, and also the United States Energy Association. So yeah, we appreciate this opportunity, and there is a lot of to consider. I appreciate the discussion already. I do apologize, I don't have PowerPoints, but I have words. Words are powerful. Words help the mind see what the eyes can't. So I appreciate this opportunity. Let me kind of start by giving just a backdrop of the Navajo Nation, where we were, where we've been, and then kind of looking at the present and future opportunities with regard to renewables. So the Navajo Nation has a storied past, as you know. When it comes to energy development and projects on the Navajo Nation. Some of the examples are that we were established, originally the tribal government was established to approve contracts for mineral extraction and development of natural resources on the Navajo Nation. The murals on the wall in our own council, the Navajo Nation Council, depict this, and those murals illustrate this history. So if you ever get a chance to come to the Navajo Nation, go to our council chambers, and they'll give a tour as well, where you'll see kind of our history on where we've been and where we look to go. And so this is just a time where we can allude to some of our history, but also mention the future and the great future that we have with that. In 1944, the United States opened up Navajo land to uranium mining to support the U.S. military's Manhattan Project. Of course, at this time, these were all confidential, and they were deep secrets, basically, of the United States military. And following World War II, uranium mining on Navajo lands increased due to the Cold War, as you all know, and the United States Atomic Energy Commission became the sole purchaser of all uranium ore mined on the United States until 1970. This mining boom led to the creation of hundreds of mines, literally hundreds of mines on the Navajo Nation, with Navajo people working these mines. And according to the US EPA, approximately 30 million tons of uranium ore was extracted during mining operations in and around, all around Navajo Nation from 94 to 1986. And We don't know the actual amount of uranium mined waste that was left behind. This is still being studied and researched. But until remedial site evaluations were completed on all abandoned radioactive mines, I guess I could say that as well, on the Navajo Nation. But according to the United States EPA, there are approximately 523 abandoned uranium mines on the Navajo Nation. And unfortunately, only 219 of EPA's identified sites have available funds for investigation, cleanup, and remediation. 305 of those sites are not being addressed. And so this results in severe environmental and health hazards to the surrounding areas and the people in those surrounding areas. Most recently, the closure of the Navajo Generating Station and several other coal mines surrounding the Navajo Nation are slated to close or have closed already. Unfortunately, the Navajo Nation is experiencing the impact of the closure of NGS, loss of jobs, royalties, and the revenue to the nation, which I will speak a little bit more in depth here shortly. The current climate and the atmosphere at the federal level, the Biden, as we heard earlier, the Biden, I appreciate Steve Gray too. Oh, I forgot to give a shout out to Steve Gray as well. So thank you, Derek and Steve, for the invite. The Biden-Harris administration intend to focus more efforts on renewable energy. And also have been some announcements here on the impact of the energy sector just recently. Biden administration's 30 by 30 initiative. In January, the Biden administration announced an ambitious proposal to conserve 30% of America's lands and waters by 2030. Mineral royalty increases. The Biden administration has been considering an increase on royalty rates for the oil and gas and coal industry. A recent study showed that the increased royalty rates would reduce production on federal lands, but increase revenue. So decreased production would be devastating for Western states and those tribes that live in those Western states and that depend on these critical minerals for good paying jobs and revenue for local communities. The Climate Task Force on April 16, 2021, Secretary Haaland issued Secretarial Order SO 3399, establishing a climate task force to coordinate work across the department, including and accelerating renewable energy development and identifying actions to foster investments in energy communities. Recently, offshore wind project was announced off of the coast of Massachusetts that proposes to create enough electricity to power 400,000 homes. This was approved and announced last Tuesday by the federal government. It is an 800 megawatt Vineyard wind project south of Martha's Vineyard near Cape Cod, if you remember hearing on the news. But this would be the first utility scale wind power energy development in federal waters. The nearly $3 billion project is a critical part of Biden-Harris administration's plan to grow renewable energy in the United States. The approval will create thousands of jobs and a step towards President Joe Biden's plan for 30 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030. As you can see, the Biden administration has taken steps to promote renewable energy development and support projects that achieve Biden's 30 by 30 initiative. So what does this mean for the Navajo Nation? Well, the Navajo Nation, we must quickly embrace, and I guess you could extend that as well to all of our Indian tribes, our Indian country that do have resources to this end. But the Navajo Nation must focus to embrace and participate in renewable energy development before we are left behind. That's the key. As I say that, the Navajo Nation still owns 3 coal mines that are still being mined presently. Sales internationally is the best bet here as our region's coal-fired power plants are planning to close. A real quick update on that, as I mentioned earlier. NGS near Page, Arizona has already been closed, shuttered, dismantled. The stacks came down into great fanfare recently here. So that one is closed. We lost 2,300 direct and indirect jobs to that. Cholla power plant near Holbrook, Arizona, recently is partially closed right now. The remaining 2 units that are still in operation are planning to close by 2025. Coronado Power Plant near St. John's, Arizona is slated to close in 2032. So they're staving off the impending closure until a little bit later date further down the road. So within the next decade, most definitely. Escalante Power Plant near Grants, New Mexico went offline last August 31st, 2020. So they're closed, and all the 200 to 400 jobs that are lost there. Four Corners Power Plant and San Juan Generating Station near Farmington, New Mexico. So there's 5 in our region here, immediate region. Four Corners Power Plant recently announced that it was going seasonal in its operations, observing peak in-season escalation of power being produced, then pulling back and going back into off-season mode during prescribed times during the year. So this is a new way of operating, staving off perhaps potentially eventual closure in 2031. Our Four Corners region is in real danger of losing its middle class with those high-paying jobs. And so many have been lost, many have been reprovisioned. I think we've lost a lot of those real skilled, highly skilled workers, and they have gone on, maybe taking less pay for other jobs in and around our region or in the Southwest United States. But we will continue to lose these jobs within the next decade. As you know, people plan, and families need to uproot and move, looking for better economic situations. So again, definitely there is an erosion of our critical workforce here to that end. So the opportunity, Derek, you mentioned 2 years ago, our Nez Leiser administration set forth our Hayot Koth proclamation, which again, I stated was our moonshot proclamation, our moonshot statement, signifying our desire to leading not only Indian country, but also energy development in the global segment of renewable energy production. We have solar, Arizona being in the great state of Arizona and New Mexico and southeastern Utah, we have sun, 340 plus days of the year, more than likely in all of the areas, but a great amount of sun here in the Navajo Nation, and the land, 27,000 square miles, a site or a land base the size of West Virginia. So we do have that, and we have several projects, 2 which are one, which is the Kayenta project. Phase 1 has been set forth. We are developing currently phase 2 now, a large utility scale solar farm there near that phase 1 operation near Kayenta, Arizona, in the Monument Valley region there. There's about at least 4 to 5 large utility scale projects that are being talked about right now. 2 in the Mexico northwestern corner near Shiprock, and 1 a little south of there down the 371 corridor, and also in southwestern Navajo Nation near Loop, Cameron area. So, and then Page, that land that was vacated by the Navajo Generating Station. These are the areas where these projects can and are being discussed right now. So a lot of them are actually moving forward, have been funded to a certain amount, and looking probably for more development funding as we go forth here. But we also have wind farms. I think last couple of decades ago, there had been studies, studying the wind in a different kind of geographic and geopolitical climate now. I think post-pandemic, which is what I'm challenging our Navajo Nation, is that even though the tribe has looked at some of these projects before, I think it behooves us to look at it again, because the urgency, and I believe the economies have changed here. So the economies of scale and urgency and a new perspective have definitely turned the winds here. And we should relook at them, do our own due diligence in the current climate again. And with the focus of all of our states wanting to be totally green and fortified with renewable energy by varying dates, like some states, 2040, 45, 50. These states are in the Southwest region are wanting to go totally renewable by then. So a real great need, and the customers are already there in place. It's a matter of getting these agreements with them and power agreements here, power purchase agreements there from these entities that are looking to go that way. So a lot of opportunity there, but the huge focus on renewables now, as I said, that we should look at wind again. I know they said the Navajo Nation really didn't have the great wind that some of the areas did, like California, eastern Utah as well. But I think, again, because the economies of scale had changed, that it's worth another look here to making sure that it is economically feasible. Perhaps new technological advances also can be taken advantage of here. With the thrust and the trend going to electric vehicles, recently was down in Phoenix, toured the Nikola power, the plant there that's going to be producing semi-trucks. Governor Ducey has signed an agreement with Nikola to provide a fleet of these alternative fuel trucks here. And, the stage is set. Everybody's looking there for their fleets. Amazon, you go on and on. There's just so many large, huge corporations that are looking to bolster their fleet needs. And where's the Navajo Nation in this? Recently, I intervened with a electric car manufacturer that was looking to Arizona to locate a manufacturing plant, Electra Mechanica. Sounds like a heavy metal band. Electra Mechanica was looking to Arizona to locate its next plant. They're a company from Canada. And ultimately, Mesa, Arizona won out. They'll be developing a new plant there to develop these electric vehicles. But with Tesla, everybody knows about Tesla, and some of the other electric car manufacturers out there. What with Nikola, and they're announced, bringing in these large contracts for 300, 400,000 buses, semi-trucks, and the like from varying companies all across North America and the world. But where's the Navajo Nation in this? And so battery generation, we can locate battery terminals, battery producing terminals. So which brings to mind the need for rare earth metals, right? Who's, developing the next tranche, I'll just use that word, of lithium. The lithium ion batteries are kind of ruling the roost here. But as we research all of these opportunities, I believe that this is the next frontier for the Navajo Nation. We have the workforce. We definitely need to bring these manufacturing and new industries to the Navajo Nation. I have challenged Governor Ducey when he talks about a robust Arizona economy before the pandemic, certainly post-pandemic, as they restart the economies within Arizona. I challenge them that northeastern Arizona makes for a stronger Arizona, and a stronger northern Arizona definitely makes for a stronger Arizona economy. So the focus getting out of the great state of Maricopa County is kind of the thrust here. But there are so many opportunities with regard to electric vehicles there, and battery, and even making various parts for these vehicles. So we're having those discussions right now. Explore mineral extraction and development thereof. We mentioned, I heard the discussion on hydrogen. We do have a couple of entities on the nation researching that very thing right now. Also helium. Experts suggest that the Navajo Nation has pristine helium here. There is also there's a national shortage, but there's also a world shortage right now. And I think whoever comes forth with a huge project here and pulls it off is able to garner the lion's share of that market. And, beat China to the punch, Canada, some of the other countries. I do apologize for not having a firmer grip on that, but I believe the nation is primed to do that right now. But we should explore how we're able to participate in that market. And those discussions are going on right now as we speak. They have ramped up, and they're taking a little bit firmer foothold from all updates that I'm receiving. So expect some major news soon coming from the Navajo Nation. Rare earth minerals, in coal and coal fly ash, we do have a lot of that. It's kind of just sitting in and around our old power plant there, but those discussions are going on even right now as well. So with the closure of NGS, the Navajo Nation acquired the rights to 500 megawatts of transmission lines here crisscrossing the United States. We need to participate in those discussions right now. We need to develop a firmer relationship with our states. I heard mention of MOUs that are being done with the tribes and the states and other, alliances, so to speak, or coalitions. So those are the trends that are happening right now. And there's many opportunities. Just throwing some things out there that the nation is looking into right now: hydrogen, helium, thorium. It's a little known element that's out there that we have a lot of here. It's not economical at this time to fully extract, but with new developments and certainly the political landscape changing, these could be areas where I believe we can to the Department of Energy and put the ask out there, whether it be a demonstration project or a pilot project of some sort here. But the nation here, we are developing. I guess continue to lay out the Hayot Kaf proclamation that we have, again, wanting to be a national and world leader in renewable energy development. As new administrations come and go, what's the focus there? So the fact that the Navajo Nation does still own coal, we still need to consider that and be open. I think the only area for that growth or any staying power with regard to coal is in the international market. The nation of Japan has recently announced, and they are working on 26 coal-fired power plants in their country. So international sales, I heard mentioned, circumventing the canal there down in Panama. You mentioned Panama. We are working with an entity right now on the nation to kind of develop microgrids, self-contained communities, almost like a dome. Maybe not literally like a dome, but if you can imagine a dome type of self-contained food, growing our own food, produce, also hydroponically growing food and whatnot. Of course, within the self-contained, there's 7 methods of developing, garnering food and revenue, selling gas, whether it be hydrogen, nitrogen, CO2, and selling it to the market and providing its own power and developing its own power and leaving no waste, no footprint. What waste that is given is burned up in a plasma generator. Up to 8 of these generators can develop 80 megawatts of power, again, fully self-contained, creating 1,200 jobs and revenue for the nation into the millions of dollars. So those are some of the things that we're working on right now. Oh, and then what waste is burned up in those plasma generators is used to build and to pave our highways here. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity in this project. We're moving ahead in one of our chapters here in northwestern New Mexico. So hopefully there'll be some big news here being announced with regard to that. So I think I've been long-winded, Derek. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to any questions or anything that you might have, comments. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Steve, I'll turn it over to you real quick.
Yeah, Vice President Leiser, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, sir.
There was a question that was posed, and I wanted to see what your thoughts are on it. As we transition, from a carbon base over toward a more greener economy, how do you guys anticipate conveying that message from the new administration to the public out here across the Navajo Nation?
Well, I think it's pretty simple to me, but I understand the politics of it all. It's protecting, again, as I mentioned, that we still own coal, we still own coal mines, we still have a power plant that needs to have coal supplied to it. It's about protecting the nation's investment. You can't just totally divest yourself of these assets that you do have. And as trends, come and go, I guess, again, not wanting to upset the energy industry here, I kind of look at things from a larger, maybe more grander perspective. As you know, I'm a former pastor, but in the Bible, scripture doesn't talk about the earth is going to be heating up or anything like that. I think it's a trend, and it's a Bible trend. When a segment is leaving, in this case, coal-based, right? Coal power, coal and carbon-based products there, and the derivatives thereof as well. I believe that new technologies will come, carbon capture, carbon or coal, carbon sequestration, different things with more focus and I believe prioritizing these new technologies. I believe that we can provide a future for cleaner coal-powered plants here. The plant that closed at NGS was an antiquated plant. I do believe that it was receiving upgrades, and whether they are the new type of scrubbers or different kinds of technology that would clean the air more so. I think the trend just became too much, and the economies had changed on those and brought those that coal mine to and I won't say an early end, because it was almost 50 years old, maybe more so than 50. But as we look into those new opportunities that potentially could be out there with regard to coal, and understanding the current climate and trend to move away from coal, the nation, we still own coal and coal mines, and we still employ several hundred of miners and the like that are looking and studying this right now. Again, I think the new frontier for the coal that we do have right now is the international market here, whether it be partnering with Mexico. Perhaps they could be wanting to develop more newer technology-led coal-fired plants in their region. And we know China, and we know Japan, again, what I said earlier about the 26 coal-fired plants here, as the need to look into those areas. I guess even more so, we could aid what coal we do have and can supply those markets here by rail, adding rail. As you know, we're looking at that, having received a $2 million bill grant award from the U.S. Department of Transportation to bring in rail to the Four Corners area. So I think, once that, and it's my hope that much talked about railroad in this region going north-south to the I-40 corridor and to the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad here could be that next, region that is buoyed and bolstered by coal, not only from our mine there, but also there's 100 trucks daily being sent down from the Hesperus mine down to Gallup, New Mexico, to a rail spur yard, and then sent onto the rail. So we still do have a market. What is the, present economies state that. But I guess for me, again, I'm not wanting to really, minimize it. Protecting the nation's investment right now, it means we still have to look forward to any opportunities that we have with coal. So I know I was long-winded, Steve, but I appreciate the question.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Vice President. Good. I like your summary of the history of the Navajo Nation relative to the minerals development. I'll call, for lack of a better word, significant partnership with the federal government and energy companies. And so it seems to me that moving forward as we transition, that model needs to continue, i.e.
Yes.
There has to be significant partnership with resources, not only from the energy companies, but from the federal government. And so I'm sure that many tribes, including Navajo, had a lot of support, because those contracts, as you said, those contracts needed to be signed. So my takeaway is great history, a lot of investment that we can't, let it go by the wayside. And so more work with the feds needs to happen. So thank you, Mr. Vice President. Yeah. So, okay, let's move on to Catherine Everett. She is the energy liaison for Chairman Mark Fox, and please, extend our appreciation to him for allowing you. I know he's busy, and so we'd like to hear from you as to what the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Rikra tribes are doing. And so I've seen your chairman do many wonderful things, food sovereignty, dual taxation, and obviously continuing the development in a good way of all the minerals that are located on your reservation. So thank you, Catherine, for joining us, and I'll turn it over to you. So thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Derek and Steve, for hosting this along with the USAE and DOE in partnership with DOE. On behalf of Chairman Fox, he sends his deepest regrets and apologies for missing today's webinar as we are having our grand opening to our new Cultural Interpretive Center that he must attend to. I'll be presenting on his place today, and I serve as his energy liaison for the three affiliate tribes of the Mandan Hidatsa or Arikara Nation, also known as MHA Nation. The Fort Berthold Indian Reservation is located in central North Dakota and has nearly 17,000 members. We have 6 geographical political segments and a 7-member tribal business council. We currently have 23,000 plus active wells and produce an average of 250,000 barrels a day and 504,000 MCFs per day. Like all tribes, the MHA Nation is directly affected by climate change, as it is also a conventional energy producing tribe whose resources include valuable fossil fuels. With the Biden administration's current push for carbon reduction and move towards renewable energy, this will have an impact to MHA Nation. An estimated 1/3 of the conventional energy resources in the United States are located in Indian country. Our reservation currently sits on one of the top shale plays in the country, and about 2% of the total United States oil production originates from within our reservation boundary on what is known as the Bakken. Our nation is located far from cities and population centers and rely on the conventional and renewable energy resource productions to support our governmental programs and services, to develop our reservation economies, to provide good paying jobs to our citizens as well as our neighbors, and to become the driving economic force in our rural region. Our energy development in Indian country is essential to our tribal government operations, economic development, and infrastructure development, such as road constructions and maintenance, law enforcement, health services, alcohol and drug treatment, educational services, and new schools. The following are very important issues that MHA Nation has taken a stance on and will continue to speak on, that is recognizing the difference between Indian lands and federal public lands, removing the barrier to dual taxation on trust lands, deferring to tribal law and reducing federal regulatory red tape to streamline Indian energy development, removing barriers to funding opportunities for tribal projects and infrastructure, and holding meaningful consultations. As the Biden administration continues to carry out their policies, we remind them of their role as our trustees and to not allow Indian trust assets to be devalued by more interior trust mismanagement. Our trust resources has a huge market value now and well into the future, as it is important that we remind them it is their fiduciary duties to us as trustees to maximize the value of our trust resources and to not sacrifice its obligations as our trustee on the altar of general public concern. Indian and energy trust resources should never be sequestered in the service of federal policies that favor public recreation, occupancy, or use. Indian lands and resources are held by the United States in the trust for the sole benefit of specific Indian individuals and tribes, like our MHA Nation. Indian land is governed by specific treaties and in accordance with federal trust responsibilities to Indian tribes, tribal self-government, and self-determination. It would be a travesty of federal Indian trust policy for a trustee to hold Indian energy trust resources underground as a hostage in order to serve the climate change policy national interests of the moment. It would likewise be a travesty of federal Indian trust policy to hold Indian energy trust resources as a federal storehouse for the United States supply of future domestic resources without the consent of Indian beneficiaries. Any of these approaches would violate treaty rights, append decades of federal Indian trust policy and practice, and directly contradict the Biden-Harris administration federal Indian policy to strengthen nation-to-nation relationships, respect land sovereignty, honor the federal trust responsibility, and expand economic and community development in Indian country. MHA Nation supports a federal energy development policy in Indian country that is truly all of the above, including so-called conventional or fossil fuel energy development on Indian lands, if so desired by its Indian trust beneficiaries, as well as diverse renewable energy resources. The careful and deliberate use of fossil energy sources in the marketplace will be necessary for any successful national transition to more and more renewable energy use. Both conventional and renewable energy development in Indian country is essential to many tribal government operations, including those of the MHA Nation, and to our into our economic development and infrastructure development, such as road construction, maintenance, law enforcement, health services, alcohol, drug treatment, and educational facilities, just to name a few. In much of Indian country today, the tribe and its surrounding state government both have the authority to tax energy and economic activities on a tribe's reservation. Because of the economic death sentence that dual taxation authority yields, tribes are forced into revenue sharing agreements with the state. This dual authority means tribes either lose all revenue or are forced into inequitable revenue sharing agreements. This limits economic growth on and around reservations and prevents tribes from exercising full determination over our lands and resources. In the case of the MHE Nation, the state of North Dakota has received over $2 billion in oil and gas revenue over the past decade, primarily from trust assets on our reservation, with little to no state reinvestment in our economy, infrastructure, and furtherance of oil and gas development. On the other hand, while the MHE Nation has received less than half of the tax revenue from our trust resources in recent years, we have reinvested in further oil and gas development through infrastructure such as road, public safety, housing, health services, education, and our water system. The removal of state government tax interference in Indian country is imperative, as state taxation and other interference often limits economic growth on and around tribal reservations and prevent tribes from exercising full self-determination over tribal lands and resources. The elimination of the burden of dual taxation will help rebuild strong government and tribal economies. The Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act of 1975 and the Indian Tribal Energy Development and Self-Determination Act of 2005 and subsequent amendments to each support strong tribal governments and robust tribal economies by allowing tribes to make our own laws and to govern our own Indian lands. We seek to streamline oil and gas development responsibly in a way that it supports our economies. As such, deference to tribal law is imperative as we move forward in oil and gas production in Indian country. Allowing more tribal regulatory authority and reducing federal regulatory authority builds strong tribal governments and economies for energy producing tribes. The unique trust responsibility of the United States, and especially the Energy Department as trustees for Indian tribes and individuals and our natural resources, makes it an Energy Department fiduciary imperative to defer to self-government aspirations of the Indian trust beneficiaries regarding energy development on Indian lands. The development of Indian resources is subject to numerous layers of disconnected regulatory requirements by multiple federal agencies and departments, some of which lack the staff or expertise to effectively manage and permit processing on Indian lands. Actions are needed to support independent tribal permitting and regulation of energy resource, and we ask the government of all agencies to expand rather than to restrict to sovereign regulatory oversight of tribal governments. As tribes take a look into expanding their energy portfolio, investments will grow and the search for capital will increase. Feasibility studies will rise and pilot projects will require funding. Interior's tribal energy development funding is unduly limited to feasibility and planning of modest projects. What we need is far more advanced. There is a need to remove barriers of federal funding opportunities for tribal energy and infrastructure development. The federal grant funding process is overly complex and technical and suffers from poor communication. It lacks simple, specific instructions on how the grant will be reviewed, rated, and funded, generally lacks clear instructions, and require an enormous amount of work to prepare and submit. As our trustee, interagency assistance should be provided to tribes like us or any other energy producing tribes to complete application and secure funding from agencies across the federal government. Best way to explain this is through an example. MHE Nation has invested in the food sovereignty as one aspect of removing federal dependency and providing for our members and communities while implementing economic development opportunities and moving towards generating clean energy. Our food sovereignty initiative has included a greenhouse project where we are capturing wasted natural gas that is flared from our oil wells on the reservation and converting it to heat to power a 2-hectare greenhouse facility. The DOE grant that we applied for had about a 1-page description in the Federal Register of the funding opportunity. However, the opportunity announcement itself was a complex 136-page instruction manual for preparing an application that contained many detailed steps for preparing the lengthy application. Similarly, tribal energy loan guarantee programs qualification criteria make it difficult for tribe energy programs to successfully receive funding. Straightforward and simple process would entice more tribe applications for grant opportunities made available by the DOE, and it would enhance the working relationship between the DOE and tribes. This would permit tribes like MHE Nation to target the best energies of our tribal staff on actual alternative energy and climate change tasks rather than on application and writing and reporting. As the tribe with substantial energy and economic resources are at stake, we anticipate that the Biden administration will be consistent with its commitments to further the trust relationships with tribes and conduct effective government-to-government tribal consultation with elected tribal officials, as this will provide stability and certainty for tribal development efforts. Tribes need DOE to remove any red tape in order to streamline consultations, discussions, and input from tribes. Energy producing tribes like MHE Nation face impacts and challenges that are far different from those experienced by tribes who do not produce energies. We are all not one and the same. Each tribe is different. Energy producing tribes are well positioned to work in coordination with the DOE and the Biden administration on ways that we can create positive impacts for all tribes through Indian country. Federal respect for tribal sovereignty, authority, and self-government should continue to be the bedrock from which the Biden-Harris administration approaches all issues involving tribal energy development on tribal lands. Tribal consultation should not be an adversarial process. It should be designed to produce the best federal decisions on a government-to-government basis to manage and promote tribal interests, lands, and resources in which the United States has a trustee interest and owes a sole and exclusive trust responsibility to Indian tribes and individuals. In conclusion, energy-producing tribes are some of the most well-governed tribes in Indian country, and working together, we believe we can achieve the kind of policy harmony required to permit tribes to grow their economies and exercise fundamental powers of self-government that will best benefit current and future generations of our tribal citizens and our neighbors. It is MHE Nation's goals to maximize its trust assets, regain a strong economy, increase the standard of living for membership and generations to come, and lessen federal dependency. I'd like to thank you for your time today and to thank Derek and Steve for hosting this event again. I look forward to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Catherine. Well put, and we appreciate you representing Chairman Fox. And so, you know, I think that the big thing that stands out to me is just, you know, because many tribes have trust treaties with the federal government, there's that longstanding trust responsibility. And so, you know, using that for development, I think is something that we all need to think about. And so, but can you talk to us a little bit about the food sovereignty? Use that as an example. So what's your food sovereignty program? Because I think a lot of tribes are looking at that as a way to self-contain, if you will. So can you talk
so we're taking, Chairman one time went to an airport, saw a magazine, and saw the Dutch were one of the largest producers or exports of food. And so he took a trip over there and met the Dutch ministry and brought it to bring it back here. We have a lot of flared gas in our area. And so he wanted to utilize that and capture that. And so his plan is to use that heat, to generate heat and to power the greenhouse facility. And so he has already done the groundbreaking. He has plans to implement this by fall of 2022. It would have been a year sooner, but COVID kind of hit us and our attention went to other matters. But his plan is to be able to provide food to our communities, and not only just provide food to ours, but to also have it as a means of exporting goods to other tribes and to our nation. We want to be able to grow our own food again and to be able to feed our own communities.
Great, wonderful. Thank you, Catherine. I'm going to turn it over to Steve, but I don't know, does anybody have any questions? Catherine, you know, you're free to ask questions. Andrew, Vice President, Steve, let's just have a few minutes here of a round robin just to see if there's anything that maybe we can speak to. So, Steve.
Sure. You know, Catherine, again, thank you for representing Chairman Fox. one of the things that caught my attention when you were talking about was you alluded to making alliances. And I really think that's really important. As you heard the earlier speaker, Mr. Browning talk, he talked about an alliance that he did with tribes. We in this area, we're talking also about an alliance. I think it's very important for all tribes to understand that you're a bigger voice, you know, to people like in Washington, when you are aligned with your partners, and in this case with tribes. So I commend you guys for doing that and working with the surrounding tribes in your area. But I think that's something that we should all seriously consider and to do. So I just want to mention that to you. You can pass that on to the chairman.
Well, thank you.
I do want to, again, just thank all of our panelists that joined us today. We're very pleased with everybody's participation. We're also pleased with the people that logged on and are listening as well. As I mentioned, one of our goals is to look at the economic impact. There is such a tremendous opportunity right now with what's happening as we all are coming out of the pandemic, as the federal government is trying to kickstart the economy. And as we are going through a transition, it's an opportunity for all of us to take advantage. Energy is going to be there forever, because that's what has made the United States great. As was mentioned earlier, you know, almost a third of that energy that was generated came from tribal lands. That's significant. So as we move into this transition, we really need to capture that opportunity and really make it so that we can help our people across Indian country. We have right now a key person within the Secretary of Interior that we have her ear, that I think we should utilize that collaboratively. We are now starting this series where the Department of Energy has funded to say, okay, let's hear from the tribes. What is it? And I think we can take advantage of that. But it's not just Derek and I. We're almost just like the facilitators. We need the tribes backing us as we go to the Department of Energy, as we go to the Department of Interior, and let them hear us, because there's so much opportunity that we can work together and do and help Indian country. So with that, I just want to again thank everybody for joining us. And we look forward to hearing from everybody. Thank you so much again. And we look forward to your participation and movement as we go down this road.
Steve, this is Vice President Derek. I'd like to just kind of reiterate what you're talking about, Steve. And I think the whole, I guess the rest of this discussion on this forum, which again, I appreciate. Thank you for bringing us all together. I guess I'd like to reiterate that that's really key when you talk about at one point, all the energy developed in the United States was attributed to 1/3 of it being from Indian country. And you talk about the federal trust responsibilities. You know, we've all signed treaties, or most of us have signed treaties with the federal government. You know, just a word search on that treaty, you know, is the act of treating, continual. Now, I know we've been, you know, talking about depleted and dwindling budgets and whatnot, you know, less and less money coming to Indian country. At some point, we'd love to not always be there with our hand out, but be so energy rich, be so revenue generating from Indian country that we don't go to the federal government always, asking for increased budgets and the like, but we're contributing actually something to the stability of the government and the stability of the United States. And that lends itself towards a discussion to national defense, homeland security, all of these different areas where maybe we've not really focused on where are the opportunities. And you're right. We do need to come to the federal government, when in this case, the Department of Energy, with that ask. What is the ask? Maybe tribes haven't gotten so apt at, coming up with the right question. And I think now's the time to do that. So certainly bring in the bright minds and all of our technical and analysis people that are able to help us come up with that. In the past, tribes had the CERT, which is the coalition of energy-rich tribes, something like that, much like the OPEC of that generation, right? I mean, tribes can certainly do that. Our partner there under President Chairman Fox's leadership here, and some of the other tribes, we can come together, strategize, develop an energy czar, and come to the federal government and the United States' aid, and push forth another kind of entity like that, whether it's a new one or just retake that old thing up, because it was livelihood, but it was also deemed a threat back in the day. And so I believe we're at that time where we could utilize everything that the pandemic brought to, in this case, the Navajo Nation, but I do mean Indian country. How do we parlay that into advancing all of these discussions, whether it's energy, economic, business development, whether it's, enhancing the quality of life in the Indian country? I know the Biden-Harris administration says Build Back Better. I challenge that thought simply for the fact that building back better means we were there once and we're looking to get back. Indian country's never been there. We've never been invited to the American dream. I say the great catch up, especially the Navajo Nation could potentially be receiving $2 billion here on this next American Recovery Plan Act funding that's coming down soon. How do we use that money to catch up the Navajo Nation, to catch up Indian country with the rest of the United States? Again, going on that thought, we've never been invited to the American dream. How do we utilize our federal partners, which I've coined our federal family, because of those treaties? Again, not being so critical, but it's the act of treating. It's like federal government, when you sign a treaty with us, it was the promise to continue to take care, to foster growth at some point. Again, because we don't always want to have that posture of our hands out, right? In Navajo, we call that shah mentality. You owe me, you need to give me something. We don't like that posture. And I believe this Nez Leiser administration, we've been putting it out there time and time again. We are resilient. Our people have been through a lot of hardship over the time. And now with this pandemic here, continued hardship, right? Every problem that this pandemic brought to the nation health-wise was magnified. Every inequity was magnified. So how do we change that? So certainly you're all part of that discussion. And I look forward to joining many more discussions along that thought. How do we bring Indian country back up? How do we catch up Indian country with the rest of the United States? So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And it looks like we're almost out of time. And so I want to continue with what Steve mentioned, and that is thank you very much for joining this conversation. Andrew, Mr. Vice President, Catherine, on behalf of USEA and the Department of Energy, I think we accomplished what we want today, and that was have a conversation, on a very, very important topic, and that's Indian energy minerals, and what's the future. And there is certainly a lot of catch up to do. A lot more discussion that needs to take place. As Vice President Leiser said, the pandemic certainly has highlighted a lot of challenges. And so we hope that in the next 4 webinar series that we have, our next one, our webinar number 3 is coming up on June 2nd. And so the first Monday and the third Wednesday of June and July is our continuation. And so again, we appreciate everybody joining us. We hope that as we move forward, we can perhaps look at some ideas. I like the idea, Mr. Vice President, of maybe a new Council of Energy Resource Tribes. I do like the idea of, how do we look at treaties, but in a different way. I like what, MHA is doing with its greenhouse and food sovereignty. And then of course, Andrew with, looking at how do you maximize the resources, blue hydrogen, certainly creative ways to maximize. So at the end of the day, as Steve pointed out, tribal governments are unique. Tribal governments are companies, their families, their governments, and tribal governments has a big responsibility, to provide programs and provide health, education, and welfare, to the members on the reservation and off. A lot of our tribal people live off the reservation, but there's still that connection between our members who live on reservations. So tribes have tremendous responsibilities. And so with that, we want to say thank you very much. And thank you, Mike and Michelle.
Hey, Derek, if I could, can somebody put the background of this forum on the PowerPoint? This is just for social media. We'll give you a shout out. We'll give this forum a shout out on social media, just to display that. So my staff, Adam, will take a picture,
Michelle,
I guess.
Can you put that on somehow?
Absolutely. I'll send it to him in a separate email. Not a problem.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Adam. I guess everybody just smile for the camera.
Smile with the camera.
Oh, I see what you mean now. If you give me a second, I'll put it up. I thought you were going to put it up for another reason. Give me just a second.
By the way, Mr. Vice President Mike Moore, this session's recorded and the material that's with it will be available on the USCA website indefinitely on his approval. So you can always draw back to the link. You don't have to be registered. You can go right to the link. You can get down to the whole video and also the materials that have been left behind for presentation materials. And you can leave material maybe in addition to what you discussed or to support what you discussed, we would make available through the website, through the web link. And that way you've got everything, your words as you said them, in a video available for anybody else on that link.
All right, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And you're right, yeah. So duly noted. All right, Adam.
Thank you. So on behalf of thank you, Mr. Vice President. On behalf of the Indian Energy Minerals Forum, we want to say this has been a great conversation, a success. Our next one, as I said, is June 2nd at 10 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And so we appreciate everybody. I learned a lot today. I try to be very versed on Indian policy, but I learned a lot, especially the history and, and then what's happening in MHA and Navajo. So with that, I want to say thank you, and we'll call this a great webinar. So with that, we'll say so long, everybody, and have a great day. Be safe. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, everyone. Good day.
Thank you, Stephen, everybody. We are